Welcome to Inside Games Daily, the only gaming news show brave enough to empathize with the developers at Bungie.
Yeah, it can't be fun. You know, you're working on Marathon for a long time, you put it in front of everybody, looks cool as hell, but now it just seems like it's kind of the smelly kid in class.
Former Marathon developer Spirited posted a brief but direct call out of Marathon's management team on Blue Sky yesterday.
Yeah, though the post has since been deleted. Here's the full text. Quote, as a former Bungie employee who worked on Marathon, I feel for those still at the studio. Working with engineering/Marathon leadership was extremely toxic and humiliating. I won't speak about the rest, but Bungie leadership needs to be gutted completely.
Wow, that is
very strong.
That's very strong, and I'm very brave to put that on the internet. The Game Post reports that Spirited worked as a software engineer from June 2022 to May 2024, according to their LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, and it's the Game Post, by the way, which is how we can have access to these posts now, since they've pretty much all been deleted. This also isn't the first time that Spirited has spoken negatively of Bungie's leadership. Though, like we said, both the current post and the ones that have been reported on in the past have since been deleted, so I think Spirited is starting to feel the uncomfortable spotlight.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, I don't know, maybe tough to find another job. Oh, maybe not. Maybe it won't be, but tough to find another job in the industry. Hopefully not for Spirited. After another round of layoffs at the studio last year, Spirited posted on X that, quote, every day was a fight for autonomy and trust. Every day was someone telling me I'm not allowed to speak on any issue or problem in a professional tone. Yeah,
they concluded that by saying that they need to flush out leadership completely. So another call for a complete executive flush from Spirited. But yeah, you know, since deleted, I can empathize, especially with the desire to express. But like you said, Bruce, sometimes, I don't know where I'm going with that one. I got to be honest.
Lawrence, you know what? I think I understand. I think you're going to say sometimes the consequences can be far-reaching, and it may not be the best thing to just blast it all over the internet. Now, that said, they may not be even wrong. Spirited knows better than anybody, right? I would assume they worked on this team for a few years. They know that maybe the management is maybe not the best, or maybe they are great. Everybody's experiences may vary, right? But I hope that everything is okay for them.
Yes, and thank you for finishing my thought for me. In a situation like this, you want people to know who the problem actors are, and you want to defend the people who are doing right. So it can be very tempting to express that full-heartedly onto the internet, as somebody who has probably done that or close to that in the past. But like you said, Bruce, you know, even though I empathize with the situation, it is only one person's account. However, we have some other stories trickling out lately from some other Bungie, anonymous Bungie employees that things are maybe really going sour at that studio.
Number one, Destiny enjoyer Paul Tassi corroborates the internal bad vibes at Bungie, sourcing some current and former employees and saying that company morale is in free fall.
The vibes have never been worse is an anonymous quote. And yeah, given the stretch of layoffs into art theft, into the mediocre reception of Marathon, they could use a win.
Yeah, apparently there are no internal whispers of delaying the game, though, from its September release, which is kind of an interesting thing that the internet has been calling for, is a delay on Marathon that looks like it's still slated for September.
Seems like they are retooling the marketing campaign, though, which is probably wise. Apparently the entire concept for Marathon came from one of Bungie executives' good old boys, which is a phrase I can't wait to never hear again. Apparently they, whoever they are, ignored developers' request to add meaningful PvE components, which is the exact thing that I'm looking for in a game like Marathon.
That it is, yeah. According to Tassi, this has a lot of developers rightly concerned about what'll happen to the company if/when Marathon bombs.
Even though they're not the same game, and I'm sure that that's been said a lot around the studio, it is sitting right next to Concord, which was quickly had a bag thrown over it, hustled into a van, and taken away, never to be talked about again. So this is all kind of sounding familiar. I feel like we've seen this routine a couple times in various studios around media.
I mean, yeah, this happens, I think, not only in the video games industry. We've seen it in entertainment and movies and television. Sony acquired Bungie for $3.7 billion in July of 2022. And you know what? At the time, didn't seem so bad, right, Lawrence?
Well, I had a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach, I'm going to be honest, because and there's key words now that set my skin to crawling. Bungie CEO Pete Parsons wrote an awfully lofty post about it on the PlayStation blog at the time. He said that, quote, like us, Sony believes that game worlds are only the beginning of what our IPs can become. That's what starts me like contorting into a pretzel. Anyway, he went on to say, quote, today, Bungie begins our journey to become a global multimedia entertainment company.
Oh boy, this sounds real familiar, Lawrence. We've heard these exact words from management that we've worked with. I mean, literally almost exactly. Also, by the way, just so you know, audience, when you hear CEOs, and now I'm sure Pete Parsons, whatever, great guy, but I'm sure when you hear words like this, you have to remember what is motivating all of those words. There's a giant check with a bunch of money underneath all of that stuff because they got a check from the acquisition and they're making a shitload. I mean, we're talking shitloads of money. Like we're in the millions, hundreds, like I don't know about hundreds of millions, but like definitely in the millions. So when they're like, this is the best partnership we've ever had from Sony, they're making a lot of money. I wish they would just say they sent me a check, I made a bunch of money, and also, I'm serious, like I'd just be straightforward about it. Like, yeah, they gave me a fucking shitload of money, and also we want Bungie to be a giant global multimedia company. Like, totally fine with that, but they never say that, and I don't like that.
Yeah, this could also just be presumption and psychoanalysis on my part, but I feel like prestige and ego is another part of it. All the claps in the room were for The Last of Us, which managed to convert from an art auteur video game into a celebrated premium HBO series, and that I think every media executive wants to be the man with the golden touch. So they like to think they are. They tell themselves they are. So that once they have one hit under their belt, now suddenly they can do it all. I can do entertainment, I can do film, I can do TV. And suddenly I can run with all these Hollywood executives that freeze me out at all the parties I go to. They won't talk to me. So I feel like sometimes that's a bit of it too, of what's the rush to bite off all these mediums that your studio and the people you work with and your entire career have no experience in. But it happens again and again and again. And in Bungie's case, they needed to hire up a ton to make whatever they were planning on making. Some CG feature we'll never see. I don't know. Anyway, at the time, Pete Parsons said that the immediate effect of that acquisition would be a, quote, acceleration in hiring talent across the entire studio to support our ambitious vision. And what an ambitious vision it was, Bruce. How did that turn out?
Oh my gosh, Lawrence, let me tell you, Bungie, not only they made billions and billions of dollars, they hired thousands of employees. It's now one of the biggest oh wait, no, I'm sorry. Bungie laid off 100 employees in 2023 and then 220 more employees in 2024. So they scaled down almost immediately.
Yeah, so it's an uncomfortable cycle. A company gets acquired on the success of one particular kind of product or service. They spin up a ton of projects that are not that product or service. They spend years storyboarding, ideating, or taking early lunches and early dinners and long business trips where they schmooze and connect with other creatives for the bright, bold future. And then, oops, 2 years go by. No one has anything to show for it. And now we've got layoffs.
Yeah, this is, again, Lawrence and I have experienced this numerous times. So if it sounds like we're projecting, it's just actually, because it really does. It sounds like we're trauma dumping. This is actually just our experience. It really has happened. We've seen all of this happen in real time. And we can't say that all of these things exactly happened at Bungie, but probably little flavors of this, I would imagine, has happened.
Yeah. So, thank you for busting me out of that, Bruce. I was going to a dark place. But so here we are with some bad news and bad fallout and bad trickles of information from ex-employees and presumably current employees. These are not all positive signs, are they? I don't know. What do you make of all this?
Yeah, Lawrence, you're right on here. Like, this is unfortunately, a lot of these things that Lawrence is saying and that I'm saying are true. Like, this isn't me. We're not just guessing. And I've said over and over that I just wish there was more transparency when it came to executive leadership at these companies, and was like, hey, like, I took a check for a large amount of money because we started the company. Like, Pete Parsons has been working at Bungie for a long time, right? I get it. He probably deserves a lot of the money that he's made and all other stuff. So for me, it's like they come out and they say, well, we got a check. I'm going to leave the company in 2 years or whatever, whatever he's going to do. And I want you guys to make the best marathon possible. And then, like, hands off. Or come out and say, Sony has decided they're going to stick their fingers into everything. This is obviously, say it a little more business speak, but Sony's decided to stick their fingers into everything. We're going to try and make the best product we can for Bungie and for Sony. And we're gonna, we'll do our best in this strategic partnership. Blah blah blah, all that other bullshit that they say. Just be a little more honest with their employees, and then in turn with the public, because now both Lawrence and I were here speculating. It's like, of course Pete got a fucking check, and all the executives got this giant check, and then we're all mad at him. So it's like, just be a little more honest about it. And Lawrence, full disclosure, I played Marathon, really liked it. I really liked what I played. I had a blast. And it's funny because I've talked to a lot of other people and they're like, kind of like shrugging it. And I'm like, wow, I really enjoyed what I played. And it's really interesting to see so much hate about Marathon, because I'm not usually on that side. Usually I'll play the game and everybody else will be like, yeah, everybody else is right. Not very good. But generally speaking, I enjoyed what I played, and I'm actually looking forward to seeing what the developers are making from Bungie, because I do trust Bungie, and I do think that they've made, amazing products over the last 25 years. So I am looking forward to Marathon. That said, it is really easy to pick on them when you've got layoffs and you've got a bunch of other people being like, this sucks and the management's terrible and all this. So it's like, that does not form a really good picture for people like me who want to play the game and enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought all that up, because I worry that it's getting a little fashionable to pick on Marathon, but at the same time, I kind of understand why. They were pretty clearly coming from a place of overconfidence when they got that massive Sony check. We were left to assume, without transparency, that it was kind of burned on a lot of starter projects, didn't quite go anywhere. Then Destiny slipped a little bit in terms of player count, which I don't put on Bungie. I thought Final Shape was amazing. I just think it's really hard to keep a games of service game enticing after 10, 12 years, however long it's been. So what it seems like, and this is to somebody who's even following the studio, is that they whiffed on a lot of like theoreticals, and now they're at the point where they have to make something that performs. So the business aspects have driven the design of Marathon, which is a game that doesn't take too long to make, is not very asset heavy, and is maybe a tweak on a game type that can be very lean and engaging. So that's kind of what it feels like, is that Marathon's at the bottom of the viability, like it's at the bottom of the decision tree for them. If any other plan had worked out, they probably wouldn't be making it. So I don't know if that's the case, but that's kind of what it seems like, which makes it seem like a game that if it wasn't their first choice, why should it be ours,
Yes, absolutely. In our little bulleted script, Lawrence was writing about Take-Two's Strauss Zelnick. You were saying how I read this article about he's like, I don't play games. And
that's the transparency you were asking for, right?
No, and it's great. It's great. And it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy because it's like, look, Strauss Zelnick, they're going to release GTA 6, and for all intents and purposes, it's going to be the biggest video game in the world. And it's going to make, billions and billions of dollars, and everyone's going to love it. But their CEO's over there being like, I don't really play them. So it could go either way. I do appreciate the transparency. And this is worrisome to hear those sorts of things from executives. I know you have more on this, Lawrence.
Yeah, I thought that was fun because Zelnick has never been anything but a business guy, and typically, that's what executives are. They don't need to give a shit about potatoes to know how much they sell for, and if they turn the dials on the conveyor belts a little bit faster, they get 5 more potatoes a day. Who cares if it injures somebody? Don't worry about that. So I don't know. I think it's something we want to do in gaming, to presume that everyone up the chain is as weirdly enthusiastic as, let's say, Randy Pitchford about the games that they make. But no, when you're dealing with like billion-dollar companies, yeah, there is some detachment there, and at some point, you get the business people to run the business and the developers to develop. Part of that quote, actually, Zelnick said that his job was to just get the best people in the room and get out of their way. So that's the other half of his transparency and clarity on his job. At least he doesn't masquerade as somebody that, his heart is necessarily behind the product or the business, but he is at least aware of his own role, as opposed to, I think, some other CEOs that try to role play the figurehead in addition to doing the business job, which involves laying people off. It's kind of hard to be both of those at the same time. So anyway, that connected with this a little bit, and I know some people have a deep attachment to Bungie, which I get. But at some point, yeah, it's business, and it's always business first, because that's what drives everything. So a certain amount of emotional detachment, I think, from a company and the decisions it makes can help in these situations.
That's what we preach on the show all the time. We always talk about how, like, the reasons that these decisions are being made is for business. It's not because, Pete Parsons is like, I love Destiny. I play 100 hours of Destiny a day. Like, no, it's because we know that these people are making business decisions based on how much money they make, and they need a line to go up. So when we talk about the context of these video games and the releases and all sorts of other things, we always have that in the back of our heads. We know why they're making the decisions because we've been there. We know we have heard these lines from executives before about how they love television, they love internet content, but in reality, they're just trying to get the line to go up because that gets them a bigger check, and that gets their investors a bigger check, and that gets shareholders a bigger check. So it's like it's this whole thing that we know about, and whenever we sound a little calloused about, the business decisions that affect your video games, that's why we talk about it.
Marathon does look cool though. I'm excited to check it out, and I don't even care about extraction shooters. Yeah,
it's fun. I had fun.
Speaking of having fun, we'd like to shout out somebody who supports the show and has somehow just been grinding away in Marathon. Spirit Bear has beaten Marathon on Legendary, which isn't even a thing, and it's not even out yet. So congratulations.